The following is a passage on love, read from a book by Khalil Gibran titled The Prophet. For more information, please find a link in the description for a complete overview of the book. The point of this is to provide a helpful spiritual meditation on perhaps the most profound concept and experience known to humankind. Then said Almitra, "Speak to us of love." And he raised his head and looked upon the people, and there fell a stillness upon them. And with a great voice he said, "When love beckons to you, follow him, though his ways are hard and steep, and when his wings enfold you, yield to him, though the sword hidden among his pinions may wound you. And when he speaks to you, believe in him, though his voice may shatter your dreams, as the north wind lays waste the garden." In this passage, we may reflect on the fact that Gibran identifies love as masculine, sexually polarizing the idea of love. This may also be strange considering that Gibran is a founder, or identified as a founder, of the New Age movement, which is a countercultural movement which is often seen as stereotypically feminine, and also counter, perhaps, to our current age, which tends to see or may often see God as feminine or as a woman. This is also an interesting passage because Gibran sees love as an asymmetry, as a relationship to something much higher and different than the human individual. He also describes love as if something in a far from equilibrium state, as something very difficult, even chaotic, or perturbing and disturbing. This is much different than the type of love that makes you feel comfortable and secure, even the type of love that makes you feel warm and at home. Gibran is also describing a form of love that we may think of as the opposite of identity, a non-identity, a type of love that requires you to burn yourself or parts of yourself, burning parts of your identity that may not be worthy of this love, and that this process will be painful, but also something necessary to become something new, something worthy of love. For even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you. Even as he is for your growth, so he is for your pruning. Even as he ascends to your heights and caresses your tenderest branches that quiver in the sun, so shall he descend to your roots and shake them in their clinging to the earth. Like sheaves of corn he gathers you unto himself. He threshes you to make you naked. He sifts you to free you from your husks. He grinds you to whiteness. He kneads you until you are pliant. And then he assigns to you his sacred fire, that you may become sacred bread for God's sacred feast. Here again we see the idea that love is painful. Here one might meditate on the idea in psychoanalysis that one has to go beyond the pleasure principle, that too much pleasure or an excess of pleasure at a certain stage of development actually becomes painful, and that self-growth requires a challenge, a difficult challenge and an obstacle, and a self-posited endurance in something difficult. Gibran here is also pointing out that love is not secular or earthly. Love is not something of our world. It is something transcendent, something that even disconnects you from earth. Here we might think of the metaphysics of Earth as mother or Mother Nature. Here Earth as our womb, and love as an ascent to something higher, something beyond the Earth. Gibran also notices that love is something that consumes you and erases you at the same time, a type of ecstatic joy in the consumption or cannibalism or sacrifice of your identity, of your very being. And that this process actually rejuvenates you, reinvigorates you, and makes you more worthy of it and a better person in relation to others. All of these things shall love do unto you, that you may know the secrets of your heart, and in that knowledge become a fragment of life's heart. But if in your fear you would seek only love's peace and love's pleasure, then it is better for you that you cover your nakedness and pass out of love's threshing floor into the seasonless world where you shall laugh, but not all of your laughter, and weep, but not all of your tears. Love gives not but itself, and takes not but from itself. Love possesses not, nor would it be possessed, for love is sufficient unto love. Here we might think about the idea that to experience real love is to open oneself to life, and that before one experiences real love, are we really alive? In this sense, for those who are too fearful or too timid to experience love, we may experience something of a death before death itself, that we are not really ready to live, to become a fragment of life's heart. We're also here introduced to the idea that fear might be the opposite of love, that those living in fear are those who, to shield themselves from the brutality and the harshness of true love, fall into simple pleasures and become satisfied with peace and comfort. Another idea that we might meditate on is the idea that we have so much emotion, so much laughter, and so much pain, so many tears, the extremes of joy and pain, which we keep inside of us, lock inside of us, and become numb to our own selves, dead to our own selves, because we don't want to experience all of love, that we're scared of if we look at ourselves too deeply, that we might have too many tears or too much laughter, that we might feel too alive. When you love, you should not say, God is in my heart, but rather, I am in the heart of God. And think not you can direct the course of love, for love, if it finds you worthy, directs your course. Here again, we might reflect on this idea of the dissolution of the ego or the dissolution of identity, this asymmetry between us and love. That in order to experience love, we have to let go, to be in something higher than us. I'm also reminded of the structure of the Matryoshka dolls, of this idea that buried deep inside of us, there are layers upon layers upon layers of self and consciousness, and when we burn these away, we reach something paradoxically more than us. I'm also here open to reflect on the idea that atheists start to act as if they are God, not knowing or not realizing that they're separated from another part of themselves, perhaps even a higher side of themselves or a realer side of their heart. The geometrical structure of a loop or a Mobius strip also comes to mind. In the second part of this passage, my mind goes to the idea that when humans make plans or are too concerned with making plans, especially rigid and fixed plans, that God here laughs, since we are not really in control, and that our ego or our self-identity has a difficult time coming to grips with the fact that we are not really in control. And this requires faith in love and trust in love and the power of it, and that if we give ourselves to it, that we will get the most out of ourselves and the most out of the world. Love has no other desire but to fulfill itself. But if you love and must needs have desires, let these be your desires. To melt and be like a running brook that sings its melody to the night, to know the pain of too much tenderness, to be wounded by your own understanding of love, and to bleed willingly and joyfully, to wake at dawn with a winged heart and give thanks for another day of loving, to rest at the noon hour and meditate love's ecstasy, to return home at eventide with gratitude, and then to sleep with a prayer for the beloved in your heart and a song of praise upon your lips. Here we might think that love is not an asymptotic approach to some goal at the end, but is purely in and for itself. It has no time, it has no goal, it has no purpose outside of its own experience of itself. It is sufficient unto itself. Here we're also asked to once again think about the dissolution of identity, the dissolution of our particular finite being. We're asked to meditate on the difference between a solid identity and a fluid identity, of an identity that becomes fixed and trapped in a particular notional determination, versus an identity that can become something other, that's willing to become something other, that's willing to challenge itself. We're also asked to reflect again on the paradoxes of pain and suffering, of real emotion. That to be a real living being, we have to experience real pain and suffering, and not be scared to feel deeply, that this has to be self-posited, that if we don't take that jump, that leap into the otherness of our own emotional energies, that we'll never truly be alive. Another important note is the notion of gratitude. The notion of gratitude over bitterness. To be bitter is to be in a self-imposed hell. To be grateful is to immediately see beauty in small things that we constantly overlook. This again was a passage from Khalil Gibran's The Prophet, which can be found in a link in the description. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for your time.